I moved to my husband's hometown and we finally had our long-awaited child. I dreamed of a happy life with my new family, but that dream never came true because my husband started making unreasonable demands of me. Moreover, the presence of my husband's ex, Rebecca, tormented me. During all this, I gave birth to our daughter. The next day, while I was still exhausted from childbirth, unbelievably, my husband showed up with his ex-girlfriend. The ex-girlfriend laughed and called my beloved daughter ugly. Immediately after, someone else appeared. I'm a mom with a daughter, and I need to share the crazy story about my husband. His behavior and comments during my pregnancy were so awful that I doubted he even had a heart. My husband, however, angrily shouted at me, saying,
"You're the one who's crazy."
If you don't mind, I'd love to hear everyone's opinions. I'm an office worker in my 30s. I've been married to my husband, Jack, for 3 years. My husband moved to my hometown for work a few years ago, and that's where we met and got married. After the wedding, my husband had to return to his hometown for work, so I moved there with him. While my in-laws never visited without notice, my mother-in-law is quite a strong-willed person. Since both of you are working, why not stop renting and just build a house? When you have children in the future, this place will feel cramped. Hey, Erica, don't you think so too? Well, I was always overwhelmed by my mother-in-law's non-stop talking and often just gave a strained smile in response to her questions. But since she didn't delve into the topic of children too much, I found her hard to deal with, but didn't actually dislike her. I was considering starting a family, so I decided to work shorter hours at my new job. There, I met a woman.
"I'm Rebecca. Nice to meet you. By the way, when I heard your last name, I thought, is your husband's name happen to be Jack?"
When I answered that it was, she exclaimed,
"Wow, what a coincidence. I'm friends with Jack. I heard he had left town, but I didn't know he came back."
At that time, before I knew Rebecca was my husband's ex-girlfriend, I simply thought, what a small world. That day, when I talked to my husband about Rebecca,
"Oh, really? So she's still around. She's loud, isn't she, huh?"
my husband said, reminiscing about Rebecca. After that, we conceived our child after months of trying to get pregnant. My eager husband immediately informed his parents, who were very pleased. Then discussions about having a house intensified as my pregnancy progressed. By the time I returned to my hometown and finished giving birth, our house construction was scheduled to be completed.
"I'm looking forward to raising our child in our new home."
My husband was excited too, but around this time I started to feel dissatisfied with his actions.
"I've been invited out for drinks again, so I'm going."
He started participating frequently in drinking outings. My husband's friends were mostly single, and there were many times when they would drink together late into the night, often coming home in the early hours. Hey, I'm not telling you not to go drinking, but you're about to become a father soon, you know. It's scary being alone, and I'd like you to cut back on how often you go out, or at least come home earlier. What do you think my husband said when I asked him that?
"You're being too controlling, don't you think? I'm not out partying until the morning, so please let me go out with my friends."
He sighed, sounding tired. At this point, a guy who says things like this will definitely keep going out even after the childbirth. It's not about control. Whose child is in your belly? It's your child, right? It relieves me to hear that. My husband has clearly become more careless with how he treats me, and what's more...
"Hey, Erica, are you keeping track of our finances?"
What's this all of a sudden? I am, but... Until now, I handled the finances, but he started getting involved in money matters and giving opinions about everything.
"We're starting the mortgage soon, so we need to save wherever we can,"
he said. He began checking receipts closely.
"Erica, change your shopping time. There are more discounted items before closing times."
He says selfish things like that.
"There's no need to use a particular facial toner. That's right, from now on use the dollar store toner."
When he said that, I got angry. Since I have sensitive skin, I've tried various things, and the current toner works best for me. Besides, you keep talking about cutting back, but why don't you reduce your drinking? I think that's the best way to save money. He hesitated at my words.
"Am I not even allowed to take a break? Actually, I was thinking, Erica, since you're managing work so well and able to go in, why not work full-time until you go on maternity leave, since you won't be working for a while after this?
Even though I've told him our savings are solid as they are now, he's still saying I need to work harder. He's asking me to work even harder now, despite my belly getting bigger and the physical strain increasing. Is he the devil or something? Moreover, he's not even trying to save on his own drinking expenses. Well, is he saving money just to ensure he has enough for drinks? I couldn't think of anything else, so I just ignored all of my husband's incomprehensible saving tactics. At home, the days without peace continued, and I thought I should at least try to find some solace elsewhere, but even that didn't happen.
Hey, don't you see that we're running low on copy paper? Since you're a newcomer, take the initiative and do something about it. And when the shredder gets full, empty it. That's just common sense.
Before I knew it, Rebecca started criticizing me more often at work. If only it were just about work.
Jack says that at every drinking party, since his wife got pregnant, he seems to notice only the unpleasant things. You use expensive skincare products yourself, yet you told Jack to cut down on drinking expenses, didn't you? But you know, your skin isn't particularly flawless, is it?
Rebecca looked at me and giggled. During pregnancy, many people experience skin issues due to hormonal changes. I was taken aback by Rebecca laughing at people's faces, and it was the first time I realized Rebecca was participating in the drinking parties.
Jack has a delicate side, so please be gentle with him. Even back when we were dating— Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to say that. What should I do? Let's pretend I didn't say that just now.
With a smug smile, Rebecca glanced at me and then calmly returned to her seat as if nothing had happened. My husband, who wants to go to drinking parties with Rebecca, who inexplicably views me as an enemy. It felt somehow like dots connecting into lines. When I returned home, thinking I would talk to my husband, I received a message from local relatives. My mother had been in a traffic accident and would be hospitalized for a few days. Actually, when I was in elementary school, my father passed away from an illness, so my mother raised me on her own. She seems conscious and asked relatives to keep it a secret from me because she's worried. Of course, I couldn't stand still. I consulted with my husband that I wanted to go see how my mother was doing.
If she's conscious, then do you really need to go? Leave your mother-in-law's care to the relatives. Since it costs money for trips back home, it's wasteful to go back so many times.
He said that. My husband's worry wasn't about mine or my mother's health, but about money. The next day, without telling my husband, who went to work early, I left a note at home and left for my parents' house. I explained the situation to my company, and they allowed me to take leave earlier than planned and returned to my hometown. Strangely enough, my husband, who was supposed to know nothing, called me immediately.
What the hell are you doing? Don't just spend our money without permission. You just took leave from work just like that. Aren't you being naive? And what about my meals while you're not here?
He must have found out Rebecca, I'm sure. Thinking that made me sick with anger towards my husband. Don't worry, I paid from my own savings. My colleagues were kind, they're excited about the baby. But compared to that, are you worried about money and your own meals? If that's the case, why don't you just run to the discount supermarket?
What's with that attitude? Apologize to me.
Seriously, sneaking around and contacting your ex? It's disgusting. And I retorted to my husband. As soon as I mentioned his ex-girlfriend Rebecca's name, he hung up immediately. Let's slap a discount sticker on this guy and see if we can sell him off. No, is it more like junk removal? The person who takes him would practically be doing charity work. If it were me, I wouldn't take him even if he were free. I don't need a husband like this. My mother didn't have any health issues and was discharged safely. After returning home for a while, I gave birth to my daughter. My husband must have been really angry with me. I contacted him when labor pains started and after giving birth, but he didn't even bother to reply. I told my mother I wanted a divorce and to return home.
My dear, I've been lonely living alone. I'm looking forward to living with my daughter and grandchild.
Her words comforted me. But the day after giving birth, something unbelievable happened. My husband, who had been unreachable, suddenly appeared in the hospital room, and next to him was Rebecca, with a triumphant look on her face.
Erica, I need to talk to you. Let's break up. I think you've already realized, but I love Rebecca. Oh, trying to claim compensation would be pointless, you know. Until we got married, we had a platonic relationship. I don't hold Jack back like you do, and I can support Jack with my big heart. Jack also loves me for being like that after all.
I see. Understood. Our house will be ready soon, but what are your plans?
Of course, Rebecca and I will manage. You work part-time and we can still cover our expenses, and having Rebecca who works full-time would make our incomes more stable. I want to go on a trip every year for our anniversary, but still, poor little girl, she's so ugly, just like her mommy. Aw, this must be disappointing for all the relatives.
It was my fault for letting my guard down, but Rebecca picked up my daughter without asking and said incredibly rude things to her. I couldn't believe my husband would say such a thing to his own daughter. I was tired after childbirth, lack of sleep, anger, and a mixture of emotions. "Don't touch my daughter with your dirty hands," I shouted loudly. At that moment, the hospital room door opened. "Who do you mean by all the relatives? Say it out loud. It's your empty head that disappoints me." With her face turning bright red, my mother-in-law appeared. Next to her was my mother.
Huh? Why is Mom here? I haven't even informed her that our child was born.
Jack's face turned pale at the sight of his mother's appearance. "Who are you, dear? Your face seems similar." My mother-in-law was glaring at Rebecca, but it seemed like they weren't meeting for the first time. Rebecca seemed pleased that she remembered her, saying,
"My name is Rebecca, and I used to date Jack. I'm going to marry Jack. Please take care of me from now on, Mom."
She greeted them with a smile, but it quickly turned strained. "What? Jack, are you still seeing this woman? She enters people's homes without greeting anyone, doesn't arrange her shoes, and even opens the fridge without permission when she's thirsty." My mother-in-law had hated Rebecca for her rude behavior since she and Jack had an on-and-off relationship during their school days.
"Oh, come on. I was just a kid back then. Anyway, look at this. We were just talking about how it's a shame the baby doesn't look anything like Jack."
Rebecca was desperately trying to change the subject. My mother-in-law took one look at my daughter, who had been taken back by my mother, and said, "They say daughters look like their fathers and sons look like their mothers. She looks just like Jack did when he was born. You can see it, right? Jack looks just like me. So what do you mean? Are you trying to tell me I'm ugly?"
"Huh? No, I didn't mean it like that."
Rebecca was completely intimidated by the forcefulness of my mother-in-law. Rebecca was hated by my mother-in-law since before marriage. A person who barges in unannounced the day after giving birth can't be a reasonable person. I found out later that on that day, my mother-in-law arrived a bit earlier than my husband and Rebecca. She apparently had a chat with my mother at a cafe near the maternity clinic. "I'm sorry, Erica. My idiot son. He's truly an irredeemable idiot." I heard my mother-in-law was crying. I wonder if things would have been different if I hadn't unfairly held negative feelings towards my mother-in-law and had consulted with her earlier. But you know, people's true nature don't change easily. I think we would have ended up in the same situation. After that, my husband and Rebecca were forcibly sent away by my mother-in-law. After I was discharged from the hospital, I returned to my parents' home and struggled with childcare.
"Regarding the division of assets, I'll buy the house and the car. In return, I'll give you cash, Erica."
It was unclear which standpoint he was speaking from, but my husband was completely unapologetic about it. Now, I have a condition as well. My husband wanted to remarry Rebecca immediately. Agreeing to certain conditions of mine, a divorce was subsequently granted. By the way, the condition is that the child support be paid in a lump sum.
"There is no way I can afford such a large sum of money."
He started getting angry, but I expected that. "If you can't do it," I said, "then I'll prepare a legal document. If child support payments are delayed, I'll proceed with wage garnishment." Jack frowned momentarily at those conditions, but his mind was probably already full of thoughts about his new married life with Rebecca in their new home. But you know, reality isn't so sweet, is it? A few months after the divorce, my ex-husband Jack called me.
"Erica, I'm glad you answered. Please, help me."
And I had nothing but disgust in my heart when I heard Jack's voice, which sounded as if he was about to cry.
"Since the mortgage on the house started, life has been tough. Or rather, Rebecca's salary is unexpectedly low. Less than what you earn working part-time. What's wrong with that company?
And to Jack, who is going crazy, I said, even though she's an ex-girlfriend, she's the kind of person who would destroy someone's home with impunity. Do you think someone without such morals can be good at their job?
Well, but...
As Jack murmured, I interjected, and yet you'll still have to pay compensation to me.
Huh? Compensation for what? Now, of all times, what is this compensation for?
Contrary to my brightly spoken words, Jack's voice became so faint it seemed like it might disappear. Was it a platonic relationship? I mused aloud. Since proving adultery would be difficult, I will claim compensation for emotional distress due to the outrageous remarks and actions during my pregnancy and postpartum. To both you and Rebecca, you know.
This is really troublesome. I've been cut off by my parents and even estranged from relatives, with no one to rely on.
You chose another woman over your wife and child. You should realize how terrible that is. Did you seriously think you could delay a happy life? Isn't that a bit naive? Jack couldn't retort to my words and just sobbed miserably on the phone. And don't forget to pay child support, of course. It's your only duty as a father. If you fall behind, you understand what happens, right?
I agreed to the divorce, but things are different now.
That has nothing to do with me. Please communicate through my lawyer from now on. Jack on the phone sounded frantic and was still saying something, but I ignored it and hung up. Later, the lawyer contacted me, saying Jack would pay compensation in monthly installments of $200. He said that Jack and his wife had contacted him. Of course, I declined and suggested, why not sell the car? You can count on me to not condone any of this. If it's compensation for two people, selling the car might just be enough. By the way, Jack's hometown has limited public transportation, so it's quite inconvenient without a car. Later, I received a call from the lawyer saying that Jack and his wife wanted to talk to me directly. I agreed to meet them under the condition that the lawyer would accompany us. We decided to meet at a cafe in my hometown. There was no need for me to go to Jack's hometown. Contrary to Jack's exhausted face, Rebecca immediately glared at me as soon as we met.
I intend to claim compensation from you too.
Huh? I didn't expect her to say that, so I stupidly blurted out.
You know, you really lack awareness as a responsible adult. Do you realize the trouble you've caused at work by suddenly going on vacation? I'll have you pay for that inconvenience. Rebecca looked at me with a smirk, as if she wanted to say, if you don't like it, I might drop the compensation claim. I'm sorry. I'm not sure where to begin, but why did you come all the way here today just to say something like that? I'm really surprised. Erica, don't encourage stupidity. Who's going to defend this guy? It's ridiculous enough to say you won't pay compensation. I never meant to provoke her, but Rebecca's face turned bright red. Seriously, suing a senior colleague at work? What's that about? After I've given you so much guidance at work, are you planning to repay me with ingratitude? What do you mean by guidance at work? Like going to fill in for someone or peeking at the machine every time the shredder is used? I hate to ask, but am I misunderstanding something here? I thought to myself, tell me it's not true. But apparently it was just a figure of speech, and Rebecca shut up. By the way, Rebecca was pretending to be my senior, but she started working there only a few months before me. Rebecca seemed to know nothing, so I informed her of a certain fact. Actually, if anyone's claiming to be a senior, it would be me. I've been working here since graduating from university, so this year marks my 10th year. By the way, the director, who is your immediate supervisor, was my senior back when he worked at the headquarters. Huh? Seeing Rebecca's surprised expression, I almost burst out laughing. I had assumed she already knew, but apparently Rebecca didn't know until that moment. Rebecca seemed quite out of place in the workplace, and tasks assigned to her took 3 times longer than others. Moreover, she reportedly took sudden leaves when she realized she couldn't meet deadlines due to frequent mistakes. Rebecca looked down on me for working part-time, but it was a decision made after discussing pregnancy issues with HR when I relocated, and I ended up taking early leave, but I had already completed the handover. Moreover, the tasks I handed over to Rebecca amounted to nothing, and the new employee who joined this year proved to be much more capable. When Jack heard about this, "Hey, the story is completely different. You're the one who went to me saying that your future would be safer if you married someone like me with a full-time job, right? Even today, when I said I have work, you told me to leave it to you, so what are you trying to do now? If you're going to get mad like that, then stop it. I've always hated that about you. Why didn't you tell me something so important like this woman moving from the head office?
Both of them started yelling at each other, and I could only chuckle in disbelief along with the lawyer. Rebecca might have had her reasons, but considering my years of service, Jack should understand as well. Does cheating make you incapable of making normal decisions? Even if you say you're full-time, you're a contract employee, right? The manager doesn't intend to renew...
Huh?
Oh, sorry. Please pretend you didn't hear that just now. Well then, I'll head home since my mother is looking after my daughter. Goodbye forever. While I said goodbye with a smile on my face, Jack and Rebecca were at a loss. What the heck did they come here for, paying such high transportation costs? Just to make fools of themselves, huh? You really can't get away with doing bad things, can you? So what happened to them afterward? As for the alimony, it was transferred to me in a lump sum at a later date. Apparently they really sold the car and begged Rebecca's parents for the shortfall. Rebecca's parents apparently didn't know about her affair, so they agreed to cover her on the condition that she repay the money. Regarding Rebecca's job, her contract was not renewed and reached its expiration as per her manager's words. Rumors were circulating about my husband aiding her, making things quite tense until her last day of work. Even on the day of her leaving the company, it seems she quietly left without saying a word to anyone. The house and car were indeed valuable assets. Assets are everything, was Jack's catchphrase, but now he must be struggling with the mortgage on that house. Jack didn't have a particularly high income either. I wonder if Rebecca was drawn back to Jack because he was building a new house himself. My income supported our livelihood, but I'm sure even the financial planner was surprised by our life plan. But we are now divorced strangers, so it doesn't concern me anymore. As for me, I was to return to work at the head office after my maternity leave. It's been a tough pregnancy, but there have been some good things. Actually, I've been keeping in touch with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law. We got along better after the divorce. My daughter, who used to look like Jack, now looks a lot like me, she says. There may be difficult times ahead, but I want to enjoy spending time with my parents and child happily. This concludes my story. Thank you very much for listening up to this point. When Jack and Rebecca kept breaking up, it was clear they couldn't make a stable home. They must have lost sight of their surroundings. They're truly foolish. I hope Erica finds happiness with her mother and daughter. Unlike Erica, who was pregnant and growing as a mother, Jack was busy playing love games with his ex-girlfriend. Stupid people aren't good as husbands or fathers. Erica started a new life. Please wish Erica a bright and joyful life and future. There's no need to be kind to someone who gave up a future with their own child. A husband who disregards a wife who is desperately raising his child deserves to be discarded.